Okay, folks, it is 6 o'clock and I am calling to order the meeting, the regularly scheduled meeting of the Common Council of the City of Platteville. It is Tuesday, November 14th, and it is 6 p.m. We'll start with roll call. Candace.
Kathy Kopp.
Here.
Jason Arts.
Here.
Lynn Parrott. Todd Casper is excused. Bob Gates.
Woo, too close.
Very good, Bob.
He is here.
He's supposed to be closer to the mic.
Barbara Doss
Here.
and Ken Killian.
He's walking in.
I'm going to say here.
Okay,
you,
the first
everybody.
item on our agenda then is consideration of the consent agenda. The following items may be approved on a single motion and vote due to their routine nature. We'll start with council minutes from October 24th, payment of bills, the financial report for October, appointments to boards and commissions. Tonight I have 3 to the Airport Commission, Brian Wiseman, to the Plan Commission, Ciara Miller, and to the Tide Group, Sakara Wages. Licenses, 1 and 2 year operator licenses to sell and serve alcohol as were in your packet. Taxi driver licenses as were in your packet, a banner for Wisconsin Badger Camp from November 20th to December 2nd, a street closing request of Court Street between Main and Irving on Friday, December 15th from 5 to 9 for a holiday performance. Michael, are you performing that night? It says a performance by the Main Street program. Okay, there we go. Election cost sharing agreement. Do I have a?
I have a question. Who
Okay.
did you say is on the airport commission? This person?
Brian Wiseman. I think I wrote it right.
Well, I know Jim Berglund has recently.
He was appointed at the last meeting, I believe. At the
Yeah,
last.
and then it tells me there's still another 3 term.
There is, yes.
Right.
So it's another new member.
Yep. Yeah, I think I appointed him last time, Jim. Okay. All right. So do I hear a motion on the consent agenda?
I move to approve all items listed under the consent.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Lynn and a second by Kathy to approve the consent agenda as presented. Candace will vote.
Kopp. Yes. Arts.
Yes.
Parrott.
Yeah.
Gates.
Yes.
Killian.
Sure.
Doss.
Okay, next item on our
Motion carries.
agenda are citizens' comments, observations, and petitions, if any. And I have Molly Bone had contacted me and said she wanted to give a little update from Congressman Van Orden. And so I suggested she do that during this portion of the agenda. So Molly.
Thank you, Barb. Yes, my name is Molly Bond. I'm a field representative for Congressman Derek Van Orden, and I also live in Platteville as well. So just an update from our office overall. So we are a constituent service first office. So that means if someone is having an issue with a federal agency, our office may be able to assist. So that includes passports, Social Security, VA, disability, things like that. So if you're having trouble with a federal agency, please reach out. We've gotten back over $200,000 back to constituents and closed down hundreds of cases. So please utilize our office. I also hold most mobile office hours once in a while in Platteville. Usually I hold them in the public library here in town. I also travel throughout Grant County and other counties as well. So you can go to our website, vanorden.house.gov, to view those mobile office hours, as well as sign up for our email list to get frequent updates from our office. Congressman Van Orden was appointed to 3 committees, the first being the Agriculture Committee. On that committee, we've been working hard on the Farm Bill. So we hosted a listening session in August with the Chairman G.T. Thompson, as well as Senator Ron Johnson in La Crosse, and we had over 300 people attend that. He is also on the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee. Recently, he introduced the Protecting Infrastructure Investment of Rural American Act. Long titles for these, but basically that removes barriers for smaller rural municipalities to apply for some federal grants. In some of them, they're defined rural communities as 200,000 population. This bill would reduce it to 20,000, as that's actually more reflective of what rural America is. So he introduced that bill as well as other bills to support dam infrastructures and projects like that. He's also on the Veterans Affairs Committee, as well as the chairman of a subcommittee on economic opportunity. As a retired Navy SEAL of 26 years, Veterans Affairs issues are very important to him, particularly veteran suicide and mental health. So he's introduced lots of bills and amendments to legislation to support our veterans in that manner. Yesterday, they passed the Warrior Call Resolution, encouraging people to call a veteran, check in on them, see how they're doing. He also recently introduced the Veterans Education Transparency Act, which would make it easier for veterans to enroll in higher education as well. Those are just a few things that he's been working on. Again, I would encourage you to look at our website, sign up for our email list to see what bills he has introduced and what's going on. Lots of dairy bills to support our agriculture as well. This evening, he also voted in favor of the continuing resolution to continue funding the government. So that's a hope going to the Senate. So we'll see what that happens as well. Congressman Van Orden has been to Platteville. He did meet with our council president, Barb Doss, as well as Kathy Kopp, our city administrator, the fire department, with regards to the fire station project. And we provided some information on some federal opportunities there as well. We visited the university and we look forward to having him come back more to other things as well in the future. So again, constituent service first office. I just live in town, so please reach out to me. Council members, I did put my business card in front of you, so you have a way to contact me. So please reach out to us. We are here to serve you. He wants to be available and accessible to the community, so don't hesitate to reach out. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Molly. I have had no one else register relative to citizens' comments, observations, and petitions. I will say that the latest edition of 53818 is has been printed. Jody tells me it was to be in the shopping news. I didn't get mine in my shopping news, but that's where you find your 53818. It has incredible information about the coming rides, opportunities to take a not a sleigh ride, but a horse-drawn carriage ride. I'm like, a sleigh ride is not going to work in Wisconsin anymore in December, I'm afraid. But anyway, it has information about that, information about the fire facility, as well as all of the programming through Parks and Rec through this coming quarter, plus other stuff. So thank you, Jody, and all the folks that worked on that. So let's move then into the reports section of the agenda. Reports in your packet were the Housing Authority Board. Lynn?
We have nothing. The discussion came up about expanding a board, but we'll have to out how we want to do that, because we'd like to have some more people on board for the department only has that one. That's the only thing that would not have been on. So other than that, no, there's
Okay. All right, and the next one would be Police and Fire Commission. Kathy?
Nothing further to add.
And the Airport Commission, Bob.
Just a couple things. I guess the bad news is we've lost a couple members lately or recently, so there are vacancies. And we'd be interested in anybody who would be willing to serve on that commission. And the good news is we've received some proposals for the airport management, and we should be conducting interviews soon, and hopefully we'll have a new manager in not too long.
All right. Other reports in your packet were the Water and Sewer Financial Report for October, the Airport Financial Report for October, the Department Progress Reports, and the Fire Facility Update. And at this point, I'm going to also remind people that this week on Thursday night at 6:30 in the council chambers, there is a presentation about the fire facility and the fundraising aspect of how that is unfolding. So 6:30, it's a public meeting. Anybody's welcome to come. Clint, you want to add anything?
Don't think so.
Okay.
Certainly, everybody and bring a friend.
Yep, come and bring a friend. Okay, any questions on any of those?
I have, this is a department progress. Okay, I have a question or two for the city manager. Goals for November. Direct and implement the formal complaint and mismanagement policy along with providing training opportunities for staff. Is that it says it's been delayed. Is that the document that was brought in a couple times in the past?
It is, and then we had, I think you came in and we had intimate conversations on it as well. And then I've also had it reviewed by Corporation Counsel, and then I've also ran it through a Grammarly AI program to check it as well. So I think we're getting very close on finalizing it. I plan on taking it to the directors meeting tomorrow.
And it comes back to the council?
If it's your pleasure, it's an administrative policy for controlling staff underneath the city manager. So I was
Yeah.
planned on rolling it out as a administrative policy.
So is it gonna come to the council?
I don't
No, did
believe
not.
so.
I did not intend to bring it back to the council at this point.
It has come in the past. I was curious.
This is a new policy. We haven't had this policy before.
It is not. I'm sorry, it is a new policy. We have not had it before.
But I'm talking, am I thinking about the same one? It's the employee.
It is the one that I brought forward for information and discussion. And we discussed on it, and then you had come in afterwards and we sat down in the office, and there was concerns I think specifically had on is like defining staff and some other types of concerns that you had, Alderman Killian. That is the policy that I'm referencing.
So it's not coming back anymore to the,
It is not my
City
intentions,
council.
but I work for you folks. If you want it to come back to you, by all
I guess
means, we
that
could
would-
bring it back, but I planned on rolling it out as an administrative document and managing the folks that you folks have me oversee.
At the end, can you just attach it to your weekly update so that we have what is the final?
Certainly, yep, yep. Because it does touch on you folks for the extent of if we're reporting mismanagement, there's an avenue to bring it forward to the
Council.
president or the pro temp. And then certainly if you have folks coming from the organization that are bringing forward complaints and such, then we would be asking you to reference them to the policy to bring it through the chain of command accordingly.
but I could pick up a copy of it.
Certainly, yep.
Okay, my next question is, says, meet with DNR regarding our trails.
Yes, I plan on trying to meet with I think our regional director at this point, just to establish a relationship. And then I know we had discussion on, I think riprap with stream preservation to ensure that we don't have any types of erosions, and then wanted to also just bring them up to speed on the amazing things we're doing with our trail and the projects that we still have on the horizon.
And my next one is finalize city position and PFAS settlement.
That's the PFAS. There is a litigation case out there right now, and working with our city attorney on understanding. From what I understand with Howard's report that we got back, we currently don't qualify for the threshold of meeting it. I don't know, Howard, if you want to comment on that, but we're trying to understand from our attorney's perspective on if we want to preserve our right by opting out underneath the possibility that those thresholds potentially drop in the future. We're just trying to get an understanding of what's going to put Platteville in the best position for the future. As of right now, thankfully, we don't meet detectable levels right now that would entitle us to a settlement.
And the PFAS, what does that stand for?
It's
Perfluoroalkyl.
Pardon?
It's a perfluoroalkyl substances. It's a family of at least 15 that are regulated by the DNR and the EPA. There are a number of them. Some of them have different limits, but the primary ones have a limit of 4 parts per trillion. And that's basically the limit that the current technology can detect those substances at. In the recent testing that we've been required to do, our wells, our water does not have any detectable PFAS.
Yes.
PFAS.
PFAS.
Like I said, they're PFAS is the short acronym, but it's a family of substances. And like I said, thankfully, we do not have any, but as the city manager said, we're working with the city attorney to figure out whether or not we need to do something to keep our legal options open if something should happen in the future.
And Howard, isn't it true that most of the places that are having PFAS contamination, it's through, wasn't it through fire departments that used certain chemicals or certain?
Well, there are a number of different ways of doing this. A lot of them had to do, as you mentioned, with certain firefighting foams, specifically used in large airports and military bases and things like that. But they are also, there's like 15 to 20 locations where these chemicals are actually produced in the United States for other things. That's like a precursor to the Teflons and other non-stick items that go on cookware and things like that. So because we don't have any of that around us, because we don't have a military base close by, because we haven't had to use the firefighting foams, we don't have that here in our water.
So the closest, as far as the city, you would say probably is what, Madison?
I have not looked at the data at this point to see which communities are the closest. We do have some detected in Wisconsin, but not here in Platteville.
But as far as cities, I thought maybe you knew which cities are.
I don't have that information right now. I could probably look it up and provide something later, but I'm not aware of anything nearby. And what I mean by nearby would be something that would be hydrologically connected or potential hydrologic with our wells.
Those are my questions. Thank you.
Okay, if the questions are answered, we'll move on into the action portion of our agenda. The first is ordinance 23-10, amending parking on South Elm Street on the west end of the Platteville Public Library. Howard.
Yes, thank you. The Holiday Inn Express has a concern that customers need additional overnight parking and has suggested converting the 5 parking stalls on the west end of the public library to allow for overnight parking for hotel guests. The reason is that many are construction workers with large trucks that do not fit in the underground parking lot. Currently, the 5 stalls are partially on the city right of way, but they're right there next to the library. They're signed like the adjacent street. No parking 3 a.m. to 6 a.m. and then 3-hour parking 9 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. The management requests that this area be signed as hotel and library parking only and 3-hour parking 9 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. That way it could be used overnight for hotel parking and during the day for hopefully for library parking. went through all of this. There's a proposed ordinance that would enact this. One of the, it helps the Holiday Inn Express. The fact that they're booked to near capacity is good for the city. It keeps the 3-hour parking during the day for the library. It could increase workload of the police department to enforce limitations and things like that. But staff has this ordinance for your consideration.
Okay, any questions of Howard? In your budget and fiscal impact, it indicates that the Holiday Inn Express will pay for the signs. Is that correct?
I said should be. I have not asked them about that. So that would be a question for them.
Probably should ask before you write it down then. All right.
Okay.
I have several people who have registered in favor of this change. Those include Julie Klein, Alan Klein, guys, you can wave, Summer, Colorado, and Michael Walsh. Any questions from us? From anybody?
Right now, does Miners Development LLC still own that property? 'Cause I was thinking it did.
Clint,
Yes, the property and the parcel is owned by the owners group and the corporation. How we still put ordinance over it is for the sake that it's partially in right of way. And for the sake that we're still be enforcing the daytime 3-hour limit.
I have a question. Maybe to be addressed by Julie. On the sheet, one of the cons was the possibility it might increase
Police
for the
department.
PD. Would it be possible? It seems to me like it could be a fairly feasible idea to do like a
Lay a
dash
piece of
tag
paper.
or something, they're gonna check in and it's something that they could hang from their mirror or something, and then it's not a question.
All right, Julie, if you're going to speak, you have to come to the podium. So we'll invite Julie Klein, who manages the Holiday Inn, to the podium.
So thanks for the question, Kathy.
Okay.
When we did meet with Clint and our owners, we suggested that. But right now we are simply calling the non-emergency number, but we would be willing to do whatever would make it easier. Because by all means, we get the vehicle's license plate information anyway, and we of course know what room that person is in if they should need to be contacted. Does that answer your question?
Sure. Yeah, I had suggested last time that if there was even like a piece of paper they could put in their windshield or something, then when the police go by, I mean, they don't have to call, you don't have to call in the number and they don't have to,
Correct. No, we would be all for that.
well, you guys work it out. How's that? Okay, do I hear any other questions? Do I have a motion?
I'll move to approve the ordinance 2310 amending parking on South Elm Street on the west end of the Platteville Public Library.
Second,
We have a motion and a second to approve ordinance 2310, restricting parking on South Elm Street and amending the way parking is on the west end of the library. Candace will vote.
Cop,
Yes.
Arts,
Yes.
Parrot, Gates,
Yes.
Killian,
yes,
Doss.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, next agenda item for action tonight is resolution 23-33, providing for the sale of approximately 1.655 million water and sewer system revenue bond, series 2023C. And look who's with us.
And there's Brian, right on time. So I'm just going to introduce this agenda item, and then I'll hand over to Brian, who is not able to be with us in person, but we're very happy that he's here virtually. And that's not AI, that is actually Brian. Just to introduce the agenda item, each year in the past few years with, particularly with the work that we are doing on the wastewater treatment plant, we have been issuing bonds to fund most of our water and sewer CIP projects. The amount that we are funding for this bond issue is $1,891,354. But we are funding that partially through water bonds, 408,748, sewer bonds, 1,482,606, and then the rest with utility cash in the amount of 441,354. In the staff note, you have a listing of the projects and the amounts that are being recommended for funding through this bond issue and with the cash. And this is a water and sewer revenue bond, so it does not count against the GO debt of the cities and the associated capacity under state and our internal policy. With that, I will hand over to Brian.
Thank you, Nicola, and thank you for having me virtually. I apologize I could not be there in person as our 3-year-old brought home some fun stuff last week from daycare that left me now quarantined. So I noticed that you do have our pre-sale report in your packet. I would have the opportunity to share my screen. Otherwise, if you just want to follow along in your packet, I feel that's just fine, as that's what we typically do when we are here in person anyway. So let me know if you'd like me to share my screen, however.
Do you guys need it? We have. Okay.
Okay.
Oh, we're good. Yeah.
Okay. So if you go to the first page past the cover, that's titled Executive Summary of Proposed Debt. This kind of walks through the mechanics of how we intend to sell the issue. And it is no different than some of the recent years in 22, 21, et cetera, in that the city is kind of on an annual bonding for both a GO basis and a revenue basis. As Nicola explained, there's 1.655 in terms of the revenue bonds in question here for sale later in December. So the project list was included in your memo, is also included in Appendix A of the report that Ellers provided. Gets all the same numbers that Nicola went through. As she stated, you're issuing this as revenue bonds, so they're not GO or general obligations of the city. The term we're looking to issue for about 16 years. Given the par amount, we don't need to go out the full 20 years. We can still have attractive maturities, but we can also have maturities that will wrap around your existing debt, and we'll kind of get into that once we get into the tables. We would look to instill a similar call feature that we've done in the past, wherein underwriters are typically still having an appetite for about an 8-year call without an impact to the interest rates that you would receive. So in about 8 years, you can call this for prepayment should taxable advance refundings come back in a future tax bill at the federal level. The city would have an opportunity to do taxable advance refunding, or excuse me, a tax exempt advance refunding. Otherwise, you could do a taxable advance refunding. So this is all to say you really can't prepay it with cash until that 8-year call date, but you could, refund this in truth at any time. So subject to any sort of structural considerations that may warrant a refunding, meaning we want to adjust the maturities, or if there's savings opportunities, given that we've kind of gone into a rising interest rate environment here and not the valleys that we saw in 20 and 21. So if those interest rates come down, we'll continually monitor that, and we do so on a quarterly basis for the city in terms of providing a report of refunding opportunities. We'll be selling this bank qualified as you have not issued more than $10 million of tax exempt debt during the year. Going to the next page, we'd be looking to get a rating. We do have that rating call scheduled for next week prior to Thanksgiving. Given the financial performance of the utilities and the recent financial management plan completed by Ellers and presented to the Utilities Commission, I would not expect any significant movement, positive or negative, in terms of the rating. The utilities are still on a strong financial path, monitoring all of the financial components that Standard & Poor's global ratings, puts forth in terms of all issuers. We've looked at other financial opportunities in terms of issuing the debt. However, we do feel the competitive sale mechanism, as you've done in the past, kind of similar par amount as recent years, in terms of an issuance amount, we do feel like this will yield similar results, wherein no different than kind of public bidding process for a public project like a street improvement project. You're going to award the bid to the lowest cost of financing on sale day, which we'll get to on a future page here. And so we are recommending that we issue as municipal securities through a sale, competitive sale process. We would offer all of the same components going to the premium pricing section, wherein, should the underwriter offer a premium, we want to leave that opportunity open, kind of keeping all of your doors open in terms of who will bid on it, the types of bids you receive. And so we'll kind of walk through, if you do receive a premium bid, what that all entails at that time. But if you recall, from the low interest years that we've had, a lot of underwriters have been using a premium pricing model, and all that basically is you get paid up front for higher coupons or a higher interest rate, but you get that cash difference up front as compared to the yield on all of the maturities. So numbers are an easier way to explain it once it happens, but if that happens, we'll kind of show those results on sale day. However, we're just letting you know that we're offering all of the same components as the previous issues. On the next page, kind of other considerations, same thing goes, where we're offering the similar sale mechanics, meaning if the bidder would like to term the bonds or kind of group maturities, we're offering that. That just provides more flexibility, opens the door for who might bid on this. So we're going to offer it that way. Again, in terms of existing debt, we have reviewed all of the outstanding indebtedness. None of the current outstanding issues made sense to combine in terms of refunding opportunity into this new money issue. Again, we continually monitor that kind of on a daily basis and send quarterly reports. If there's any sort of significant market movement that would warrant earlier discussion than a quarterly feature, we would certainly be contacting city staff in terms of refunding opportunities. Because you'll be issuing more than $1 million, the continuing disclosure section just identifies as a municipal security, you'll be required to do the continuing disclosure requirements, no different than all of your previous issues. And then arbitrage monitoring. One thing we want to point out is this rising interest rate environment comes with rising, yields in terms of investment opportunities. We're seeing a lot of communities kind of struggle with arbitrage. So we've actually kind of instilled free of charge, meaning we've not changed our bond fees here, but we're going to do an automatic kind of 30-day review with the city staff to identify kind of these arbitrage considerations. So we've done that as a result of kind of the market conditions. Now, again, this comes with no additional fees to the bond fees, no additional fees on that back end when we do review it with staff. This is just a result of where the market is now and just the fact that communities need it. So we'll be doing that a little more hands-on, if you will, in terms of the arbitrage reporting that we'll be be doing on behalf of the city with this issue. And then on the next page, kind of continuing in terms of the investment of bond proceeds, You know, most of this is reimbursing for some projects, but some of it is upcoming projects. So if you'd like some strategies to invest your bond proceeds, you can certainly reach out to us, or continue, you know, other investment strategies that you've used in the past. And then in terms of the risk factors section, we'll get into that later in the tables. Your other service providers are just listed here in case you're curious, but continued use of Quarles and Brady as bond counsel. Your paying agent has typically been the issuer unless there's these term bonds in terms of the winning bidder, wherein we do recommend using a paying agent because it comes with kind of special mechanics in terms of the notices that need to go out. And in order to make sure that you're complying with that, a paying agent can help protect the city in that way. So again, no different than your previous issues there. And Standard & Poor's will be rating again. So debt issuance schedule, we cover most of this. The one thing I'll just mention is the sale will occur on December 12th of 2023. So about a little under 30 days from now, then we'd be looking to close before year end. And more so, this is just due to the financial reporting items, making sure that you've reimbursed yourselves for those costs. Otherwise, your audit could certainly have some fluctuations in cash use. You know, if those debt proceeds don't come in before the end of the calendar year. So it's kind of why we've recommended, knowing the project costs now, recommended this schedule and why you're seeing it in this manner tonight. So with that, I'm going to jump to some of the tables. The next page, table 1, does identify sources and uses of funds. All is to say, taking a simplistic look at those capital projects that were listed in the memo and Appendix A, what those total costs are, net of your cash available. The one additional item that I'll add there is, if you're wondering where the dollar amounts come from, that was from the financial management plan. And then we've just kind of rounded it in terms of the borrowing requirement. So we're using the consistent recommendations that Ellers has been making as part of the utilities portion of your financial management plan in order to get that ample mix of cash and debt. The one thing I will note is it is a little under what the financial management plan has indicated. And part of that was due to a discussion with city staff, wherein Ellers kind of recommended maybe holding on to a little more cash, you know, that was shown just a couple of months ago, only in that we haven't seen interest rates come down. So if you're going to continually borrow kind of on an annual cycle, the more cash we can apply, you know, towards future debt that might have higher interest rates, that'll provide better financial results and just more flexibility in the future. That also goes in line with inflationary conditions right now in terms of project costs. You know, this inflationary market, it's cooled off a little bit, but not completely. So same goes, you know, with the interest rates. So we want to make sure that we're kind of holding on ample cash, and then we'll use it more or less when we definitely need it in terms of higher interest rates or higher project costs. You're required to hold what's called a debt service reserve fund. So the next section on this table just kind of indicates what your current funds are on hand, what the future requirements will be. You basically need to raise an additional 127,000 based off of the debt schedule here. So that's included in terms of the sources and uses, the estimated issuance expenses. We only kind of know our costs, you know, from Ellers here. So the rest are estimates, and we'll adjust these on sale day once we know all of the other third-party expenses as a result of issuance here. And then that's kind of where you get to net of interest, expected interest earnings, where you'll get to the bond size of the 1.655. Next table just shows the full amortization schedule. I'm going to kind of cover this in more detail in the final item that I'll present. But the one thing that I'll just point out is just saying, you may note that a little heavier on the back end or a little skinnier on the front end. And there's a reason for this in that we're structuring around your existing debt, but we'll kind of explain that on the next tables. So now I'm on table 3, which is titled Revenue Bond Covenant Debt Coverage. This is intended to show water on its own and the sewer utility on its own and how they perform against the bond covenants, which require every year that you annually produce enough cash, net cash expenses, so cash that's left over for debt at least 125% of your debt service payment, right? Bondholders want to feel protected in terms of their investment. And for revenue bonds, this is a typical debt service coverage requirement in terms of that 125 coverage. So you'll kind of see here that the water utility is doing well, well above this 125 coverage. If you look about 4 columns in, you're at about 250 to 60 here for the most part. Sewer utility is a little closer, hence kind of the skinnier maturities, specifically on the sewer portion of the debt issue. And then in terms of the combined debt coverage, we're doing well. And that's the combined debt coverage is the truth in which you pledge. So these are water and sewer revenue bonds, pledging revenues of both the system. But you do want both utilities holding their own weight, meaning you don't want one subsidizing the other and saying, yep, we're all good. You want your sewer utility to be able to pay its own way. And that goes for the water utility as well. So bond coverage wise, we're issuing this with the 2022 net revenues. So as to say, you're able to legally issue the debt under the bond covenants to which you will offer. However, what's more imperative in terms of kind of a minimum look is the next table, which is table 4, what we label all-in debt coverage. This could maybe be labeled making S&P happy debt coverage, whatever you want to call it. But it's trying to identify what Standard & Poor's, subjective criteria would be that they would like you to be held at. And that's a combined debt coverage of 1.6 debt service capacity. So you'll kind of note the first 2 don't really change from the previous, but let's focus on the combined debt service at 1.6. Here, the one thing I'll note is this is built off of your 2022 results in which we have additional rate adjustments built in explicitly for the sewer utility for 1/1/24. And then potentially for the water utility. Remember, the water utility is subject to regulation. And we'd be looking to use the simplified rate case through the Public Service Commission. If it's available, we'll know that upon your 2023 PSC annual report being released. And you would be potentially qualified for a inflationary adjustment to the water rates at that point. So this chart is shown at the 2022 net revenues. The one thing I'll point out in the footnotes is we did identify in the financial management plan to do a 7% adjustment for sewer in 24, which would add about 200,000 of revenues there. So you'd certainly be well within that 1.6 coverage based off of this issue. And for those that are involved in the utility commission, you'll kind of remember that we're, slowly increasing both water and sewer, the 10-year plan being to always be within this 1.6 coverage. So that would not only make S&P happy in terms of credit worthiness, this would also make sure that your bond covenants are met in terms of 125. The last thing I'll just point out here as to why the 2 combined debt service or orange sections of these tables aren't 1-to-1 in terms of net revenues is your pilot payments. Those expenses are not included in your bond covenant. And that's just kind of a result in terms of how bond covenants have been drafted historically, and the subjectivity to pilot payments. But Standard and Poor's does include that. So that's kind of why it's called the all-in approach, is we're throwing extra expenses that count against these net revenues. So you're seeing a little bit thinner numbers as a result of that. But also we're not including the future increases that are certainly going to happen within this time frame depicted. Any questions on that in terms of the structure or net revenues?
I have no questions. Anybody have a question? Bunch of head shaking no here, Brian.
Okay, sounds good. The last thing I'll point your eyes to then is Appendix B in 2 pages. This is just a look at where rates are and have been going. So this is kind of what we're talking about as you look, the left side of the chart being late 2021, the good old days, in terms of on the issuer side of the interest rate market, where we had definitely some historical valleys and lows in terms of interest rates. We're kind of coming back out of that. If I were to show a 5, even a 10-year chart, you would see that kind of the current interest rates are about in line with that 5 and 10-year average. So I don't think it's a terrible time to be in the market. We're just not in that golden age anymore, in that valley for interest rates, and the unfortunate circumstances where that came at a terrible pandemic, but it was low interest rates for issuers. So now that we're kind of out of the pandemic, these interest rates have more or less came back to 5 to 10-year averages. The red square on this chart is just that we're adding a buffer for the about 30 days in time. The one benefit I'll say is the past 2 weeks, we've actually seen rates come down by about 0.1%. So small movement, but movement in the right direction. We'll continually monitor this on a weekly basis. Any significant market movement, of course, we alert staff. And, if there was some sort of market event that would cause interest rates to increase significantly, where we feel it might be advantageous to kind of pull the sale, we would certainly do that. I would just kind of say, there's certain worldwide events that are happening, whether it's wars or other things like that, that could certainly change this dynamic. But without that, we would kind of expect, somewhere in the true interest costs or cost over time to be about 5% here for this sale.
Okay, folks, any questions? The request then tonight is to adopt a resolution providing for the sale. So then they would move forward with the sale date of December 12th, with probably our acceptance of that sale at our meeting on the 12th.
That's correct.
So this is time to be with our meeting schedule. Questions, or is there someone who would like to make a motion?
I move to adopt resolution 2333, providing for the sale of approximately $1,655,000 water and sewer system revenue bonds, series 2023C.
Okay, we have a motion and a second by Lynn. Motion by Ken, second by Lynn to adopt resolution 23-33. Candace will vote.
Cop,
Yes.
Arts,
Yes.
Parrot, Gates,
Yes.
Killian,
Yes,
Doss.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Brian, thank
Yep.
you for joining us, and we hope that you get out of quarantine soon.
Okay. Thank you and have a good night, everyone.
All right, good night. Okay, that ends the action portion of our agenda. We will now move into the information discussion portion of our agenda. The first item in the information and discussion then is contract 25-23 fuel supply.
Yes,
Howard.
thank you. Our current fuel contract with Allegiant Oil expires at the end of December. We solicited bids for both the city and UW Platteville. 2 suppliers returned the bids that were opened at the end of October. The prices listed are the price above wholesale prices that also include applicable taxes. So this markup is basically for delivery costs and profit. The previous contract also included fuel deliveries for UW Platteville on campus and at the farm. And recently we had we finalized discussions with UW Platteville, and late this afternoon, they signed a new MOU that they would like to continue with the relationship that they've been doing with us for this fuel contract, if you so agree. The last contract was 8 cents over wholesale. This is 12 cents over wholesale. It does not add a whole lot to the overall budget for the extra markup. So staff is recommending that next meeting, we pass a motion to award to Allegiant Oil.
Okay, questions on this? Quite a difference in the bid prices. Quite a difference.
Yes.
Okay, we'll put that on for action at our next meeting. The next item then is potential 2024 budget items as requested by Alderman Killian. So we'll start Joe, Howard, and Clint. Who wants to start?
I don't believe that there was anything new regarding the Historic Preservation Commission, unless Joe has anything. So it's the same as last time. The things that I have for the crosswalk are you can see in the staff note in the bold type are the areas that I made changes to the original staff note. We recalculated the proposed site distance. It's been reduced to 110 feet. There is white spray paint next to the curb on each side of the street. If anyone wants to go out and look at it, in the photo, you can see the spray can just east of the utility pole, and there's a black truck on the south side of the street in this photo. We would need to have an ordinance prohibiting parking. It would leave 2 stalls on the north and 3 stalls on the south side, closest to Water Street. We spoke about the issue regarding ADA standards in bold. Per the email with the city attorney, he said he would recommend against establishing a crosswalk that is not compliant. We have different options. Something that came late Thursday, just before our holiday, was a proposal by Mr. Malishki regarding alternatives. You have a copy of that. Some are no or low cost items. Some have some cost to them. We haven't really looked at a lot of these. He talks about curb extensions. That's one higher cost alternative, but it is a traffic calming measure. Instead of curb extensions, some people would call them nodes. If you've been plus years, you know that we used to have nodes on Main Street and took them out. So I don't know whether the city has the will to try that experiment again.
Well, Howard, we did put one in right out here in front of City Hall.
Well, that's true. We did put the one in over here. So, and that one seems to be working. But so it does work if that's one thing that you wish to do. Also in your packet, I did a few additional photos that I took this afternoon. That some of these items are there. I mean, you can tell that there is signage at intersecting roads and as a last ditch effort, if you are going the wrong way at Oak Street, there's this nice red sign that says wrong way. Recently, our staff put up a no right turn sign across from the driveway at Jenner Towers. So we are working to do some no cost or low cost items to try to reduce some of these things. So
Okay, questions or comments?
I met with Paul this afternoon, and I appreciate this, Howard, as far as your putting arrows to different things that he mentioned in his document. So it looked to me like the cost would be below $10,000. If we had $10,000 added to the budget, I think that would be helpful as far as getting people across the street safely. So from what I can see, I'd certainly recommend it.
I have not done a cost estimate for those items that Mr. Malishki had proposed, but we can look at that.
So Howard, all of the costs, like option 1, 10,000, option 2, 15,000, those costs were, I guess, estimates from Mr. Malishki.
Those
No,
were,
Those are.
those
real
were
costs.
estimates from, those are from
okay.
Howard.
That's what I was thinking.
Yes, the ones in the staff note are my estimates based on what's in those options. The alternatives that Mr. Malishki said, I have not.
Okay,
Uh,
that's what I thought. I did have a question. I know the attorney, yes, cautions against doing anything that's not ADA compliant. And is that simply for liability issues if someone were to get hurt crossing on a crosswalk we installed that is not ADA compliant?
It's not only for getting hurt, but a person could sue the city.
Yeah,
They don't have to be hurt. They just have to do that. There have been communities that have been sued by individuals, by activist groups, other things that said you made a change and you didn't come into compliance with the codes. I mean, it's kind of like a building. If you have a building that's currently compliant, but then you change it, you need to bring it up to current codes. Well, a lot of times activists will sue communities that say, well, you made changes, but you didn't bring it up to code.
so if I'm looking at this correctly, to bring it up to code, we'd have to reconstruct the street. And
That's my
at a
estimation.
cost of
yeah.
around $200,000, which seems like not a very fiscally prudent expenditure for a crosswalk. I mean, it's a lot of money and it's a big project to add a crosswalk and make it ADA compliant. But without doing that, there is really no other option that would be ADA compliant that would still assist people in crossing there.
That's the conundrum.
Howard, is Mineral Street within, where is it for general reconstruction in that 100-year plan? How far out is Mineral Street?
It's not in the
It's not on the
5 or
horizon.
10, it's not in the close.
None of us will be here.
And Howard, would it be true? I mean, Mineral Street is in the downtown, the revived downtown TIF. But is it past time to do projects in the TIF.
I have not looked at that possibility, but you're correct. It is in TID 7. And I would have to work with Nicola and others to determine whether or not we're within the
Not, we're not outside of the window for incurring project costs in TIF 7. It would be a matter of determining whether it was an eligible project cost in the TIF.
It probably is an eligible TID expense if we decided to do so. We need to.
That would
review
be
that.
something that it would seem would be something that could be investigated. I mean, that would not be an immediate that doesn't have an immediacy to it. I mean, it would take planning.
Yes.
So perhaps that, and I know that Southwest Regional Planning Commission got a grant to do this walkability trail, whatever study for us. When is that due?
That's due in spring. I'd have to look at the numbers, whether it's February or
I
March.
think it's March.
March.
Is it March 12th
Okay.
maybe, but it's March, I'm pretty sure. I know one recommendation was to go ahead and put money aside, so once that study is done, the project could be started, but I guess if the attorney is advising against it, that money might be there and no project could be done. So, I mean, do you see any benefit now in, I guess, adding that to the tax levy? So if some project were to be recommended for 2024, it could be started in 2024 and not wait for the budget to be created for 2025 projects?
If it's a TIF eligible cost, then it would not impact the levy.
Okay.
So I think that we need to give them time to look at the option of TIF funding, because I mean, there's a lot of things that have to be considered in terms of TIF funding. The money coming in, the expense that's, you know, that's not I don't think that's anything that can be elaborated on tonight. I wouldn't expect that, but that is true, that TIF funding wouldn't require tax levy, and we could probably, if there was a way, and depending on how much it would cost, there would probably be a way to move that along before.
Okay. I
Ken?
believe we should be moving forward on this and not waiting so that, as I see it, there's not an ADA requirement here. Improvements should be made, and so that some of these are going to help the people as far as crossing the street, and I don't believe in waiting. This situation has gone on long enough as it is, so I think we should move forward.
I don't know what that means, because
I means at least $10,000 in funding goes toward putting in a number of these items that help improve as far as the people crossing the street and the safety of the area.
Talking about the proposal item.
According to what Paul has put in here and what Howard has drawn out here, I think there are things here that would be very helpful. And we wouldn't have to comply with the ADA.
I
Well-
agree they'd be helpful, but why wouldn't we have to comply with the ADA? I mean,
Because you're not crossing the street directly where he proposed last time.
I'm not.
Ken, I
encouraging a
don't
crosswalk
understand
that-
what you're saying. We're not crossing the street.
I know that.
What,
So we don't have ADA compliance to do
why don't we have ADA compliance?
because you're not crossing the street right directly across from their entry.
That's where he proposed the crossing last time.
Yes, but this has changed from that.
So now you're saying that the crossing
It's gonna
at
be-
the end of the block
it's
is
gonna-
okay.
It's gonna be going up higher.
I would make the following suggestion. I don't know how long you've had this, Howard.
It
Did it just come today or whatever? This
it
thing
came
from-
late,
It came
it came
Friday.
late Thursday
Friday.
prior to the holiday.
Then you had a holiday on Friday. So I would ask that you look through this and put pricing on some of these things. It appears that some of these things would be pretty minimal, like asking the building owner to paint left turn arrows on asphalt leading out of the two Jenner Tower parking lots. That's not even our expense. The radar speed measuring system, I'm not sure. I don't even know what the speed limit is on that road. And Doug,
15
I don't know
miles an
if you have, what do you call them? Portable ones? Yeah, I think you have portable ones.
We do have portable ones and we move them around periodically.
So, I mean, that is something that perhaps could be done. There's already a left turn. Well, there's a no right turn sign opposite the exit of the lot, I think. So I think some of these have already been done. Certainly installing a curb extension would require a bigger project and some discussion. But why don't you look and see how you can make improvements? And I suspect that it would be incredibly less than $10,000 to do some of this stuff.
Possibly, yes.
Right.
Potentially, yes.
So why don't you come back to that with that
Okay.
to us at the next meeting?
Okay.
Okay,
I just have one question that I really haven't heard. Have there been accidents at all?
We looked back, help me Howard, was it to January of 2018 that I
think it was, yeah.
data, we did not have any vehicle versus pedestrian accidents. We had a couple parked cars that were hit and runs, but no vehicle versus pedestrian.
in other words, hit and run, vehicle struck and
Correct.
nobody
Striking
and
another
unreported or whatever, and so
Yeah.
you come out and find out somebody knocked off your mirror.
Yeah.
Okay. Howard, I would also ask that you look at least maybe one or two parking. You know, we're never going to have an ADA compliant and crosswalk there unless we reconstruct the street. However, it might be safer for people to cross because you can't ever determine. I mean, we all see people crossing streets where they shouldn't cross streets. One thing that makes it particularly dangerous there is the distance between the first parking spot and the exit for Jenner Tower. I'm not even sure that that's compliant with law, you know. We might want to consider at least removing a parking space and putting in a radar meter. And like I said, a lot of those are probably not costly items because they're things that we can remaneuver here. Okay, any other questions?
So this will have to come to us because the budget will be looked at as far as passage on the 28th, which is 2 weeks from now.
That's correct.
So that we'll have to have it. For example, when we get as a council member, when I get a packet that's on Friday, that doesn't leave me much time to go around and look at things and talk to people. So if we get this out early, this will be very helpful. Late packets, when the packets come at Thursday, Friday, that's hard to get things done. If as early as possible.
We have a holiday week actually next week, so we'll be talking with directors about getting our materials in and submitted out on Wednesday already of next week,
Good.
because Thursday
Good.
and Friday will be closed for business.
And remember that we have Thanksgiving and then the day after Thanksgiving as holidays at the city. So City Hall will close on Wednesday and then not reopen until Monday.
Close of business on Wednesday, correct?
Close for business. Okay, I think are we ready to move on here?
Now, I have a few comments as far as historic preservation I wanted to point out a few things. Right now, the Historic Preservation Commission is working on redoing the ordinance, chapter 27, and so we expect to have that done very shortly. And also, I wanted to point out that that the Historic Preservation Commission members, most of them are new. There's only 3 of them that are older members as far as being on the commission for some time. And I want to point out that the commission has to enforce and comply with state statutes. Local units of government in Wisconsin are subject to several state statutes relating to designated historic properties, archaeological sites, and burial sites. The most commonly applicable are, I'll list a few of these. First one, 44.40, state statute prescribes a review process anytime a state agency proposes to undertake a project that would affect a designated historic property. 59.69, 4M, 60.64, 62.237. This is another one, enables counties, towns, and cities respectfully to designate and regulate historic properties. Next one, 66.04113, parentheses 3, requires a review process anytime a municipality can't pronounce, proposes to raise a building it owns with a local, state, or national historic designation. 66.111, 66.643. So there's a number of them that the HPC people have to be knowledgeable about things which are legal. And this is why they need to be getting funding to go to training. And so this is not just ordinary funding just to go to a meeting, but they're supposed to be going to meetings for purposes of training. So these are a few things I wanted to point out. So as far as looking at other committees, commissions, I think you need to take a careful look as to what the legality is as far as HPC doing things that need to be legal, enforceable. And also I want to point out, it says the CLG should provide a sufficient support for training, necessary travel, and other meeting necessities for the commission to do its job. So those are comments that I would wish to add. Thank you.
You. All right, are we ready now to move on to the next agenda item? That is the planned unit development at 135 South Hickory Street. Joe.
Yes, this is a second part of a zoning approval for the St. Augustine redevelopment project that started back in 2016. They submitted a proposal that they were going to redevelop that entire block bounded by Pine Street, Hickory Street, Greenwood Avenue, and Bradford Street. At that time, there were 4 houses and the existing church Newman Center building. Their plan was to remove all the buildings from that block, but they were going to do it in 2 phases. So they started with removing the 4 houses and then constructing a new apartment building, which is on site now and has been open and operating. But the second part was the removal of the church Newman Center building and construction of a new church Newman Center building. So they are now, after I think several years of fundraising, confident they are ready to proceed with that part of the project. So they have submitted the additional information on that project. Essentially, it's the same or similar building they have now, but larger and much nicer. Essentially, they just outgrew that building. They have a lot of outreach programs that they have with university students, and they were running short on space to do that. So as you can see, the building, it's basically in the same location, kind of same orientation. It's taller and larger footprint, so it has more meeting areas and so forth to allow them to do their outreach activities. So it's basically in compliance with the initial project that was presented back in 2016. So staff would recommend approval. Kind of the only detail that we still need to work out, they do identify there's a hydrant and a water main easement that needs to be relocated, but they have not identified where that's going to go. They just kind of say it has to be worked out with Platteville staff. So we just want to make sure that that is taken care of as part of the final approval. So other than that, I think it's just a matter of submitting the final details as we work forward. So
Okay,
any
questions?
Is the cost of moving that hydrant on the petitioner, or is that a city expense?
that will be their expense.
And that was my question too. And this building is not attached to the current apartment building, right?
Correct.
It's just adjacent to it,
Right,
but
correct.
there's no common wall or anything.
correct. And it's technically on a separate legal parcel as well.
Okay, I do have a question. They submitted renderings and or ideas of what it would look like. We've approved other projects based on drawings that were submitted. And then when the building is built, it looks nothing like the drawing that was submitted. So my question really is, when what's the point of submitting drawings if in fact you don't have to even closely resemble what's built? I mean, they're basically agreeing to a footprint, or we're agreeing to a footprint. Is that what we're agreeing to? Or are we agreeing to some design?
No, you're definitely agreeing to a design, so I'm not sure which projects you are referring to, but they would need to follow what's approved.
Actually, I'm referring to another church project that was built further west than this.
Well, that was not a plan unit development, so that was not the same level of review in detail.
Okay, so because this is a planned unit development, there's more.
Right, so the trade-off is they have flexibility in not having to meet all the underlying zoning requirements, but the trade-off is we get to have a lot more oversight as to the design and construction of the project.
Okay. All right, that was my question.
Okay, I've been looking at these pictures here, and so for next time, are we looking at the ones toward the end? Different ones, are they gonna pick one out, Fanny, and say, this is the one that we're gonna build? So you look at these here, and some of these things, and you can't read the print, but the worst thing I think as far as reading the print is going back to some of these designs here. The print is too small to read. You can't tell what's being said, and it's very difficult to read. So can improvement be made as far as what they finally want to come up with that we are supposed to vote on at the next meeting?
Yeah,
Instead
so
of giving
what,
us all these different pictures, enlarge some of these pictures so we can see what things are going to
yes,
be done.
and the architect has indicated they would be able to have material samples as well if necessary. Which
Can
may
have
help.
what?
Material samples. The stone colors, the actual materials, what they're gonna look like.
But I'm looking at the design of the building.
Right.
What is that going to be like? And also what I see here is what is the layout as far as location in relation to urban forestry? What is around these two buildings now as far as urban forestry? You go across the streets and there are trees across the street. There are trees, different places, and shrubs and so forth. So what are they going to have in the way of urban forestry? This is a building, as far as I can see, that they're planning to put in that would fit better in a downtown where you don't have any trees. Or maybe only have a couple trees out front in the sidewalk. And it doesn't, to me, it doesn't fit in here to shove it way up to the sidewalk and then have other people, even though you can look down the street and see, well, that's where the stop sign is down there. That's like looking down up at Mountain City Bank and you look down past Mountain City Bank, oh, see, there's a car coming up there. So is that going to be the same situation here? Looks like it's going to be. So I can see there's no urban forestry. So I'd like to know if there's urban forestry to be taking place here. Urban forestry is very beneficial to a city. And there, I can't see that they're doing anything. So count me wrong, put me wrong, and show me what they're putting out there in the way of forestry to improve the appearance of the building, improve the appearance of the area around the building. If they wanted more space, they wanted these pictures here, they're showing the steeples and so forth, and so I'd like to see what it's going to look like, period.
I will ask them to provide a landscaping plan.
Yeah, there are trees around that building, the current building.
Yes.
Yeah, but that was one of the concerns brought up.
Yeah, Joe, can you request the landscaping plan?
So those are my comments for the evening on that one.
I would like to put it out there too. I've actually had 2 contacts from individuals who are asked, or at least ask for the next meeting, because it's going to be on for action. Representative here to be able to answer questions
Mhm.
rather than this happens, it's going to be a major change. So that's it.
Okay, any other things?
No, that's just a
And
great idea.
it did go to Plan Commission?
Yes, they recommended approval.
Okay.
So, like, back to Ken's point, it looks like on page 204, it does almost go right up to the sidewalk all the way around. And in 203, the existing building is set back quite a ways. And I don't have a true scale here that I can see, so I don't know how many feet it's set back from the sidewalk, but is this one going to almost be right up to the sidewalk on both sides, on both street sides?
It will be getting closer. Well, technically it's close. The existing building's closer to Hickory Street at one point.
Okay,
But the main part of the facade is getting closer, and it's definitely getting closer to Pine Street. I mean, that's by necessity. If you want to put a bigger building in
oh
the
yeah,
same
yeah,
spot, it's
it's
got to
just
cover more
quite a
area,
bit bigger.
right?
But it won't affect moving it closer to Pine Street. Could it cause a site visibility?
No, they would
thing at
still
that
comply with
corner?
the
It's still
vision
within the.
Still within the
clearance
vision.
requirements. I mean, it's a controlled intersection, so you don't need to see all the way down the street, so it's not that much of a distance.
What a PUD does, it allows for changing or getting around code requirements. Plan unit development, that's what it's doing. So you're not following the code, you're doing a PUD. So you can argue as much as you want, but a PUD is this circumventing code is what it's doing.
Okay, any other questions? Otherwise, that's the last information and discussion item that we have. Joe, again, a landscape plan, and there should be representatives from both the architecture and I would assume whoever is the applicant here, the building people, at the next meeting. If that's it for tonight on those, we do have a closed session scheduled tonight per Wisconsin statute 1985, parent 1, parent C, considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility. This would be the city manager evaluation. I would take a motion to go into closed session and then to return to open session and adjourn without action.
So move.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Kathy and a second by Jason to go into closed session. We will return to open session, but adjourn without action. We'll vote.
Cop,
Yes.
Arts,
Yes.
Parrot, Gates,
Yes.
Killian,
Yes.
Doss.
Yes.
Motion carries.